What's that loophole you've been keeping a secret that you can now share because they've fixed it? So, in college, you had to buy a parking pass if you wanted to be able to have your car on campus. The pass was a sticker that you put on the back driver's side window, and it was pretty expensive for the full year. But there was one year where I knew that for the second half of the year, I wasn't going to be on campus much because of an internship. The school also sold parking passes that were good for one semester, instead of the full year, so I bought that instead. Well, what I realized is that the full year parking pass and the semester parking pass looked exactly the same, except for one small difference. The semester pass had an expiration date in the corner, whereas the full pass had that date punched, like with a hole puncher. So, naturally, for the next 2 years, I'd buy the semester parking pass and just put a hole punch through the expiration date and saved hundreds of dollars on parking. Next story. I was going through chemo 5 years ago, and I started running a fever, which meant an immediate drive to the emergency room. My partner couldn't drive me, so I parked in the deck. However, I ended up being admitted for a week before they could bring the fever down. A nurse told me on the day I was checking out to list the ticket as lost, and the system would only charge me for one full day, $20, instead of 7 days. Next story. Didn't keep it a secret, but never shared it on the internet. I'm a veteran, and years ago I was going through college getting my CS degree. The company I worked for had a program where they'd subsidize the purchase of a new computer with the caveat that the computer would double as my work machine. Well, I decided to take advantage and get a new MacBook Pro. Apple offered both student and veteran discounts, but they aren't supposed to stack. Well, during the ordering process, I opened up the pricing of the computer I wanted in 2 separate browsers. In one, I applied the student discount. In the other, I applied the veteran discount. Upon observation of the URLs, one of them had a / in it. The 2 URLs looked something like website.com/student discount parameters and then website.com /veteran discount parameters. So I combined the two, website.com/discount parameters /student discount parameters, and it stacked the discounts.
Guys, we need to take advantage of this. I don't know how, and Christmas is over, but we need to buy stuff, okay? Support the economy, buy things, rip people off. Everyone wins. Somebody loses. I don't know who it is, so in my mind, everyone wins. I'm just rambling nonsense right now. Welcome to the video. Let's continue. Next story.
10 years ago, I would visit my girlfriend at her college. The parking garage was $25 for overnight parking. I found out after getting a flat tire that the parking ticket for leaving my car on the street overnight was only $10. Probably saved over $500 from this. Next story. My company was having a contest to help boost recruiting on LinkedIn. Grand prize was a cruise. We got points for various things, but what ended up actually mattering was the amount of new connections you gained. 1 point for each. We all started with like 100 points. The max was 30,000. So I, with the help of my wife, logged into my account and ended up winning with something like 27,000 connections in the span of a few months. And how? Basically, on the mobile app, they would have a feed of plus connect recommendations that would refresh/scroll infinitely. There was no limit to it. Every other UI for sending a connection request would hit a cap, or you'd get emails accusing you of being a bot. And it turns out nobody on LinkedIn cares if they actually know you or what you say in a connection request, except for a couple of weird exceptions. Most people just ignore it or say, okay, whatever, sure, and accept. To this day, I get so much recruiter spam because of how visible I am. And also, the feed is like the dead internet sloppiest of dead internet slop. Next story. There used to be these phones at airports that were just like a direct line to a rental car place. The thing is, the way old rotary phones used to work was actually hanging up and picking up real fast a certain number of times. If you picked up one of those phones and hung it up 9 times real fast, it would dial an outside line and you could use it like a normal phone. Next story. When the first Stardew Valley concert was announced, I tried to buy tickets, but the demand was so overwhelming that they didn't actually enable the ticket buying screen for the venue. So I hit right-click and View Source, located in the header where the ID of the concert was listed, and went to a different buy page on the website. I swapped the ID in the URL, hit enter, and was the first person to buy tickets for the concert in Philly, about 15 minutes before everybody else. Got the literal perfect seats, dead center, front row of the balcony. Loved it. Next story. Back when the Coke rewards were a thing, I used to enter the sweepstakes for the small rewards like $50 to $100 gift cards. Everyone else spent their codes on the high-end sweepstakes or direct gift cards or extra Coke beverages. I, on average, won once a month or more for many years. Next story. Early 90s university parking passes had scratch-off dates. You bought it, scratched off the month, and in theory, you could only use it for that month. I got a silver paint pen and just filled them in as I went along. My teenage self was stoked to save on 11 months of permits per year. This caught on though, and they changed the permits a couple of years later. Next story. For me, it's that you used to be able to skip any ad on YouTube just by pressing the for info and press stop seeing this ad, and it would just skip every ad. I found it from a meme and I didn't tell a single soul, but now it looks like it's patched across every version and system, sadly. For a while, they patched it on mobile, but it still worked on TVs and game systems, but now they've fully eradicated it. Next story. Back in the day, NetZero's dial-up free version that had ads and time limits had really crappy programming to know it was free. After the line connected, while it was handshaking, it would launch an exe that checked the version and ran the timer and ads if it was the free one. Well, you could just write a batch file to transfer the exe out of the directory to a different folder, and it would blissfully ignore that there was an entire freaking missing exe and just connect with no ads or time limits. And I can share now because I haven't had a modem for a good 25 years. Next story. Back when I worked for a bank, you used to be required to bring new money every month to meet goals. Well, I figured out that if you had 2 people on an account and just switched up whose social showed up first, the money in the account would be considered new. Met my goals for months with that simple trick. Next story. When I was in college and on the dining plan, we could spend unused money in a few different shops around campus. I forgot about it until the end of the year and had hundreds of unused dining dollars that were just going to go to waste. So, I discovered the campus Jamba Juice allowed one to purchase gift cards using the crappy currency. So, I put like $600 onto a Jamba Juice gift card the last day of the semester. I had free Jamba Juice the entire next year, and the store immediately changed the policy such that dining dollars couldn't be spent on cards. Next story. Back in college, I never got an electric bill after moving into a new apartment complex. After 2 months, I stopped worrying about it. I asked my neighbors how much their bill typically ran so I could compare. I was sure, though, not to leave a forwarding address when I moved out and kept my South Texas apartment ice cold in the summer. Years later, I checked and saw I had an unclaimed electricity refund. But I'm not stupid. Losing a $100 refund beats them coming after me for what was probably $2,000 worth of bills over 2 years. Next story. My old apartment was the 3rd floor of an old farmhouse. When I moved in, I noticed that the cable line for the 2nd floor apartment had a splitter with an empty spot right outside my window. Well, I simply plugged into the empty spot on the splitter and got free basic cable for 3 years. I bought a cheap black box and got all of the premium channels too. Saved me thousands. Next story. When I was enrolling in college, I maxed out my unit limit for the semester. However, I needed to take 2 more classes so I can graduate on time, but the system doesn't allow me choosing more classes if you're at limit. Well, I noticed that the only thing preventing me from seeing the classes and selecting them are disabled radio buttons. So I removed the disable attribute on the input tags via inspect element, and I was able to enroll all of my classes. They never had any server-side validation. Next story. My college engineering department had a special Unix server that you would log into for engineering classes, and you had to take an Engineering 101 class to learn how to use it if you were an aspiring major. One of the lessons was how to restore your home directory from a backup. I don't remember the command, it was 25 years ago, but one of the command's arguments was your username. For the hell of it, I tried it and just put the professor's username in there instead, and got his entire home directory, including what looked like solutions for all of the projects. But I deleted it immediately, though. It was Engineering 101, I didn't need it, and even if I did, I would have been too nervous to keep it. But yeah, it was a school known for engineering, but the IT that ran the back end for everything was a joke. Next story. In university, at the start of the year, they published these corny student magazines that had vouchers in them for a free coffee from various coffee shops on campus. Well, I just started collecting like 25 of these magazines and filled my wallet with vouchers. I was surprised nobody else did that. I guess they have a sense of shame that that I didn't. Next story. In the first month of my freshman year of college, I rode with a group of upperclassmen to a liquor store and watched one of my new friends, a senior exchange student from France, buy a case of beer using his ISIC card, International Student Identity Card. Now, this was back in 2000, right after most state driver's license had started adding anti-counterfeit measures like holograms and mag stripes. Fake IDs were getting riskier and believable ones were hard to come by. Then here comes the ISIC card, which was still just a simple laminate. And although it displayed a birthday, it was only meant to prove full-time student status to obtain discounts on food, lodging, travel, etc. Yet, the sales clerk had accepted one for age verification. I then learned that my friend had used it not once, but multiple times at other liquor stores and bars without question. So I knew what I had to do next. After an hour of work in the media lab using the college's iMac laser printer and laminator, I had my very own ISIC card showing I was a 21-year-old exchange student from Dusseldorf. The first time I used it, I was nervous as hell. The cashier looked at the card for a while, looked at me, looked back at the card, and then asked, in her pronounced southern drawl, "Are you really from Germany?"
Ja, ich bin aus Deutschland. I guess that means a yes.
And for the next 3 years, I bought carloads of booze with impunity for me and my other underage friends. I was only challenged on its validity once, before another store employee piped up and said, "Nah, man, that's Bart. He's been coming here forever." Ironically enough, though, when I actually turned 21, I had to keep using my fake ISIC card at the local liquor stores because all of the employees knew me as this German guy.
Beautiful, love it, amazing. I don't support underage drinking, but I do support clever workarounds and just ingenuity. Also, I like repetitiveness. ISIC card. The C stands for card. It's like ATM machine. I love it. But this was a fun story, and sometimes you just want to be a little German, a little Chinese. I'm Chinese right now, actually, for the rest of the week. But anyway, next story.
So, a long time ago, maybe 30 years or so, I saw a guy who parked his car at a metered space in San Francisco. These were the old mechanical parking meters with the coin slot on the front, a little arced window, and an indicator needle to show the time. Well, he took off his shoe and smacked the side of the meter just after he dropped in a nickel. The needle moved all the way over to the 2-hour mark. Next story. At the hospital where I used to work as a tech, we would get charged for parking. They still do, but they changed the machines. And for an 8-hour shift or longer, parking was basically $45 anywhere in a 15-mile radius. We were paid just above minimum wage, so that would be a major hit to finances, but there wasn't any other choice since the only affordable housing was more than an hour's drive away. People working night shifts or weekends got a steep discount, though, where they got a pass where they were charged $5 at the end of every week. The passes only worked when scanning in after 5 p.m. and scanning out before 9 a.m., or so we were told. In reality, the machines were old enough that it couldn't really tell the difference. So, since shifts started or ended at 7 a.m. or p.m., I would just scan my overnight pass even if it was on day shift. Then one day they put in newer machines that were able to discern whether you were scanning in or out though, and put an end to that. But it made the difference between starving or having some food on the table during that time. Now, I avoid that by just sticking to night shifts and only working in the daytime if I can get a ride from someone. Next story. Relatively small one, but at my old job I had to manually update prices for everything as sales went on. And I noticed that peppermint patties were never changed to their original price, and made a habit of buying a few for 80% off every time I worked. Then another time from much later in my life, my job had an employee cafeteria that had fountain drinks, but there was no night shift staff, so drinks were just free at nighttime. Next story. Whenever I'd want to use this Photoshop app, it would let you add all of the fun things, but it wouldn't show you a full finished picture if you saved it. It would say, "Purchase premium to see," but it would still let you screenshot it. You had to zoom out a bit so it didn't assess the tools, but it worked. They fixed that after like a year of me doing that. Next story. Back in 2002-2003, there was a gas station by my apartment that had an ATM where with every transaction you made, you could possibly win a free 2-liter bottle of soda. My roommate and I, as poor as we were, discovered when we were both checking our account balances that every balance inquiry won. So we walked out with a few bottles that day and would hit it up once a week or so until I moved away. Next story. Back when MoviePass was a thing, you could sign up for $10 a month and be able to watch a movie a day. They mail you a debit card that front loads a small amount of cash each day when you request it, and you're supposed to buy a ticket for same-day showing. Well, I would go to the kiosk and buy a ticket reservation for a later date. Once, I went every day at lunchtime for 2 weeks to get 14 tickets for Black Panther premieres for my group of friends. Complete side story, but one time I had a really bad string of movie theater experiences, just disruptive behavior, and Spider-Man Far From Home was coming out, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to rent a theater. I'd always wanted to do that. So I rented it and no one was there to disturb me. And I had like 2 friends and his brother come and it was awesome. It's not really relevant, but I just wanted to share that. But anyway, next story. So, my office building used to lock the doors at 5 o'clock. So, if you went somewhere else on campus at 4:30 and then tried to get back, you'd have to wait for security to let you in. They said they would be right there. They weren't. And I discovered that while the door was locked, you could climb over the balusters of the stairway going up, step onto the railing of the stairway going down, and get right in. Doors were locked to the entrance, but no exit. Wasn't a fire hazard. Next story. Microsoft Teams. You could hover over your name in an email and click the call button. You would then go into a call by yourself, mute mic, and minimize the window, manually change your status back to available, and your computer would stay active. No mouse jiggling or keyboard clicking required. Next story. This one was so dumb/obvious, I hate to even call it a loophole, but I am positive it wasn't intended. Years ago, I signed up for internet through a local internet provider, and like every internet provider, they had a special new client discount. This one was 50% off of the first year. One time, I was looking through my account options, shortly after my plan switched to full price, and saw they actually let you change your internet plan through their website without actually having to talk to a person, which is great, super convenient. But the hilarious thing is that one of the options you were available to choose was the new user 50% off plan. So I switched to it, and it worked. Got another full year 50% off without having to nag a customer service representative. Unfortunately, they eventually redid their whole web platform and the ability to change your plan using the website was removed entirely. Next story. 9 years ago, when Upside, the travel site, first launched and had the international travel, I started playing around with a couple of destinations. I figured out that it would suggest a hotel further away from your desired destination with a bigger upside bonus. So, for instance, if I was looking at London, I would search a suburb and one of the alternate options would be in London with a bigger upside. So, messing with the system, I booked an international trip for close to $1,400, but was able to get $950 back in gift cards. The loophole was closed shortly after. Next story. I feel like this one is a secret that the organizers almost want you to exploit. So, check out a digital book from the library, load it onto your Kindle, then put the Kindle into airplane mode. This keeps it from checking back in with home base to know that your loan has ended, then return the book to the library from another device, allowing the next person to read it, and you have unlimited time to enjoy it on your Kindle. You don't get the fancier Kindle functions like looking up words or syncing it to other devices, and if you ever turn off airplane mode to check out another book, it will figure out that your original book is overdue and suck it back into the ether. Next story. When Pepsi did their rewards thing back in the 90s, I had a family member work at one of the bottling and distribution centers who would bring brown bags full of points to me and my brother. We got pretty much everything in the catalog by the time it was over. Family members told us the 24 and 30 packs had the most points, and for some reason would always have the most problems during printing and packaging. Next story. I lived in a privately run student housing facility that would charge you for Wi-Fi/internet access. You needed to purchase a monthly plan for a certain allocation of data per month. I didn't know about this until I had moved in and signed a 1-year lease. However, as I was moving into my room, I found that each room had a cheap and tiny smart TV that had access to free-to-air IPTV channels. Taking a look at the back of the TV, I found that it was connected to an Ethernet port. Well, I decided to make use of the networking course that I was studying and plugged my laptop into that port and discovered that it had unrestricted internet access. Off I went to buy a cheap Wi-Fi router and plugged that into the port. So I had my own free and unlimited Wi-Fi access for the next 3 years. Someone should have easily noticed that this one specific port had abnormally high traffic, but I was never questioned or had the port cut off. Then, in the last 6 months of me living there, the business changed owners and the new owners made the Wi-Fi free for everyone, so my little hack became obsolete. Next story. While in college, my university had a print quota. As a liberal arts sociology student, my print quota would be gone rather quickly. I like reading on paper where I can highlight and make notes. But I learned of a specific computer lab in the School of Communication, proceeded to print every single reading, paper, even a capstone project in color for free for about 2 years. My last semester I went in as I had done years prior, and it finally got fixed. Next story. I went to Disney's California Adventure right after they opened back up in the early 2000s. And I think FastPass was also pretty new. Anyway, we heard some other kids there that you could put anything in the FastPass machine to make it print one. I tried my library card, and it worked. So my sister and I ended up with tons of FastPasses and ended up going on California Screamin' like 10 times in a row. It was amazing. Next story. We moved into a new house and all of the appliances needed to be replaced. The local appliance store had a rebate for Frigidaire appliances, something like buy 2 get 1 free with the appliance store handling the rebate. Frigidaire also offered the same rebate, so we double dipped. New dishwasher, stove, over-the-range microwave, refrigerator, washer, and dryer for the price of 2 appliances. Next story. Years ago, the electronic ticketing system in my city for public transport had a policy that if you complete 9 trips in a week, the remaining trips were free until midnight on Sunday. The theory was that you could go home for free on Friday night if you work full-time. But I often used this to travel to the next city over for free on the weekends, which would normally cost $20 each way. My daily commute was around $5 each way, so I would save heaps in travel costs. Then, if I knew I had done less trips, like if I had a day off, for example, I would add an extra trip on my way home. There was a 1-hour window where you could continue using the same trip, so I would get a bus to a shopping center, spend an hour there, then start a new trip to go home. Eventually, though, they must have realized people were exploiting this, so they changed it to all trips half price after 8 trips in a week, which would have been the same cost for people who used public transport 5 days a week, but meant no more extra long weekend trips for free. Since then, the fares have been reduced in cost, so it's not necessary to try to exploit it anymore. But at the time, it was definitely a money saver considering how overpriced it was. Whoever came up with the original policy was either very stupid or very naive, in my opinion. Next story. I worked at a licensed store Starbucks, like the smaller ones inside of a grocery store, and we didn't have the standalone Starbucks system, so we couldn't redeem Starbucks rewards, but customers could use gift cards, which would then earn points if they had it linked to a Starbucks account. Then, the grocery store register was separate from the Starbucks gift card machine, so if they paid with a gift card, we would enter in on the gift card machine and then zero out the total on the grocery store register by marking it as a gift card. Now, I only worked there part-time, and one time someone asked me if they could ring up grocery store items and use their gift card. I asked my manager and she said yes, and I'm thinking, so they're earning Starbucks points on groceries? That's allowed, but I didn't question it. So whenever I bought small items in the store, I always used a Starbucks gift card so I could also earn points. There was also a few times I bought a Starbucks gift card using a Starbucks gift card, which would then give me points. Next story. Back when I was living in DC, the WMATA DC Metro still operated on paper tickets. They had a magnet strip on them that would read the amount of credit you had on the ticket. So when you put it in the machine to pay a fare, it would deduct the cost of the fare from your credit and spit out a brand new ticket. Well, this magnetic strip could be carefully cut into 3 long strips. So what we would do is buy a $100 ticket, slice the magnet strip into 3 thin strips, and glue it over a different worthless ticket's magnet strip that was scratched out. Then you would feed that into a machine, and it spits out a perfectly new $98.75 ticket. Those can of course be split apart again, compounding significantly. Selling these tickets at 30% discount on Craigslist was basically my summer job. Next story. Not really a secret, but 30-some years ago, I looked into having radial keratotomy. It would have cost me a few $1,000s per eye. The surgeon's office ran my company-provided insurance information, but they didn't think it would cover anything. Well, it covered all of the cost. A couple of coworkers got in on the action before the company found out and had the coverage changed to a cheaper, less inclusive plan. Next story. My college had expensive parking and limited spots for freshmen. So my freshman year, I just didn't get a pass and parked on the street. Not allowed if you had a first-year pass, but since mine had no school marking, I was able to get through the year in a not ideal spot, but better than the freshman lot. The The next year, I knew you could get a temporary pass that hung from the rear view if you had a car on campus for less than 2 weeks at a time. So, got it once, scanned it in, photoshopped out the expiration date, and printed blank ones to use as needed. Sold a couple for extra cash too. Next story. When I wasn't allowed to have internet access on my phone, I figured out some of the games I was allowed had ads with the I button. Usually, it was far more information about the advertisement, but sometimes clicking that connected you straight to the Google homepage. Trivia crack is how I stayed chronically online for 4 years while having a locked down phone. Next story. My kid and I were at an arcade one time and he wanted to play one of those claw machines for rubber ducks. The machine guaranteed a duck per attempt, but we figured out that after the claw dropped the duck, if you used the joystick to push the claw to the right immediately, it would let you go again without swiping the play card. He was delighted to have so many ducks and passed them out to other kids. The next time we went back, someone had fixed the glitch, but we have great memories of the ducks that never ended. Next story. When I was a kid, Arby's would have a survey on the receipt with a free beef and cheddar as the incentive to complete it. Take the survey, get a code to put on the receipt, use receipt as coupon for free sandwich. Except you would get another receipt with the free sandwich. There were cookies on the site to prevent you from filling out another survey, but if you erased the cookies, you could do it again. My brother and I went through so many free beef and cheddars. Next story. This was quite a few years ago. Some nameless company rolled out 2FA with hardware fobs. These hooked into the login screens of Windows 7 and Windows 10. I discovered one day if you log in, username, password, plus 2FA token, it worked normally. But if you did Control-Alt-Delete and got the login screen on a locked machine, you are SOL because you're not an administrator. Unless you let it time out and disappear. Then Control-Alt-Delete again and just hit enter and you've unlocked it without entering any credentials. Next story. For Canadians, Future Shop's in-store pickup policy was that you can reserve any item for pickup that day for as long as they are on the shelves. This included games that released the same day. So instead of pre-ordering, I would just wait until the day of, call in that morning and ask them to reserve a copy for me, then pick it up after school. It guaranteed I could play a game on release day without having to pre-order. Next story. It never happens anymore, but in like 2012, the trend in marketing was to do email newsletters with competitions in them. I would sign up for the newsletters from everything in my city. Coffee shops, music venues, bookstores, etc. I would just enter everything. Pretty sure almost nobody entered those things because I would win stuff every few weeks. Went to quite a few free gigs and events because of it. Next story. When I was poor, I worked in a shopping complex that had a flagship Starbucks. They were always so slammed, especially with college students, and I went in every day. And as soon as I got to gold status with 12-ounce black coffees, I would just keep the cup, rinse it out, and go for a free refill a couple of times a day to keep going. I didn't buy a single cup of coffee for months. Next story. During the McDonald's Monopoly game, Best Buy was a major sponsor. On the side of the McDonald's whatnot would be the peelable Monopoly game piece along with a Best Buy buck, BBB, worth either $1 or $5. When a customer would redeem the BBB at a physical store location, the cashiers would enter a standard $1 or $5 discount to the item on the POS machine and collect them for processing at the end of the night. There was no direction given to store management about what to do with the BBB once redeemed and collected at day's end. The collected tickets would pass through my position within the store, and rather quickly I made the realization that nothing was being done with the BBBs. Hundreds of BBBs would pass through the store daily, and I collected each day's bounty. Several friends and I traveled to nearby Best Buys and would redeem the stacks of BBBs, each totaled to the maximum allowed per transaction, $200. At the time, the iPod mini was priced at $199.99. After the BBB discount was applied, the iPod mini was free. My friends would each take turns buying the iPod mini for me, with the next store they would redeem for the $200 for whatever they wanted in the store. I would then sell the iPod mini on eBay Buy It Now for $189, each selling almost immediately. I did the same for Madden games across PlayStation and Xbox platforms, always selling at a slightly below the regular selling price to guarantee an almost immediate sale. Throughout the entire promotion, our group hit a dozen stores over a 2-state area to our great success. And here is when the real razzle-dazzle of the loophole appears. On each of the BBB was a unique code for a one-time BestBuy.com use. I meticulously recorded the unique codes to a spreadsheet, repeating the process online, having iPod minis, and all manner of sub-$200 merchandise shipped to friends and family. So, the Nintendo GameCube rig I play to this day was sourced from that operation, and to this day I am extremely proud of my discovery and leveraging of that loophole. Best Buy did not sponsor the Monopoly game in subsequent years. Next story. Papa John's near my house screwed up our order, so they gave us 3 free pizzas of your choice coupons as a sorry. We used the first one by calling in our order and telling them about the coupon. They deliver it, we tipped the driver, ate the pizza. Realized later that night that they never grabbed the coupon. So we used those 3 coupons probably 20 plus times. Every once in a while they would take one, but most of the time they forgot and we used it again next week. It was a few months of free pizzas for us. Next story. Yahoo Personals. They charged a fee to be able to message other users, or maybe it was you that had to buy credits to reply, and if you had 0 credits, they didn't show the username. Can't remember, as it was 20 plus years ago. But however, on a person's profile page, you could press Ctrl+U to view the web page source code, hit Ctrl+F to search for username, and the words right after it in the first result were the person's Yahoo username. It was just hidden on their profile page unless you were logged in with a paid account. And if they were a Yahoo Personals user, they were also highly likely a Yahoo Mail user. So you just take their Yahoo Personals username and add @yahoo.com after it, and at least 9 out of 10 times it'll be an active email address for that person, which you can send an email to for absolutely free. If you format your email the right way, it doesn't look particularly suspicious. Next story. If you find a single-space parking meter made by Duncan Solutions, up, enter, down, enter, enter, enter. Typing this code quickly into the 4-button panel will give you access to the programming menu. I don't recall the button sequence from here. You can locate and load the RPG file, which will take you out of the programming mode, grant you maximum time on the meter without paying. Next story. I used to have to park in a structure for work. It would max out at $20 per day, which is insane considering I worked 5 days a week. If you lost the ticket, it would automatically charge you the full day rate. Then downtown employees could get our own rate with a little barcode. The employee rate was half the price, so I was still spending $50 a week on parking. My coworker though tipped me off that if you hit lost ticket, then scanned the employee barcode, instead of charging it $10, it was only $2.50 for whatever reason. So I went from potentially paying $100 per week to park at work to $12.50. Next story. At my UPS center, we used to be issued fuel cards to fuel up our trucks in the morning at local gas stations. I was filling up the tank like $50 to $75 a day. Well, I attached this fuel card to an app that gave me cash back. I would put my phone number in for rewards at the pump. I earned so much damn free crap at those gas stations and so much cash back. Rest in peace, fuel cards. Next story. Nando's, a UK-based fast food chicken restaurant, gave out loyalty cards that got you a stamp for every time you visited. Free gifts after X amount of stamps. Stamper was the chicken logo, store number, and then the signature of the server. So, photoshopped the stamper, had made it and shipped in the US, as thought a UK-based supplier may not print it, and voila! A lot of free chicken. Then Nando's moved to an electronic system a few years later, and scam over. Next story. The small local cable company in my city would just disconnect the wire from the pole to the house when service was disconnected. It was just a simple coax cable connection. Well, I paid the local meth head $20 to climb up the pole on a sketchy ladder and just reconnect the cable. I got free basic cable for 2 years, and the meth head got a bag of meth. Did went on to do this service for a bunch of my friends in the neighborhood. Next story. This is like horrible, but like clever, but just horrible. I mean, if you directly gave the guy meth, I would be giving a thumbs down, but like it's his choice to use the money, but also, I don't know, maybe, hey, I have a lot of conflicting thoughts on this one.
Oh, that's horrible. But anyway, next story.
So, Instacart offers like $10 off a $35 order through their restaurant orders. You could earn this if you bought like $40 in groceries anyway. Then, if you found a restaurant with a buy one get one free item, they didn't have a limit, so you could buy $70 worth of food for $35 and then apply the $10 off coupon to get it for $25. And if you did the pickup option, there's no fees. This got me a lot of good takeout for super cheap. I don't know if they patched this per se, but I stopped doing this, actually canceled my account altogether, after I learned that there's virtually no support if something goes wrong, and they will keep your money. The promotion is through Instacart and the order is through Uber Eats, so as soon as something goes wrong, they each point at each other for who is at fault and no one will give you your money back. Even worse, if something goes wrong and you do pickup, because then they say they aren't liable and it's your fault or the restaurant's fault. Next story. I worked for a tow company in college. A friend of mine had parked his car in the short-term parking section of a local airport by accident instead of the long-term section. He was gone for almost 2 weeks, and the charge was going to be several $100s. Then, one of our tow trucks was the repossession style with the hook and book equipment. So I printed up a fake repossession order from a local bank and told the booth attendant I know the car was in the parking lot and I was going to take it. He even called up his supervisor, who told him the repo order trumped any charges that the airport was owed. I went in, hooked up the car, pulled it out of the garage, and dropped it around the corner where he was waiting. Next story. I made out a modest living buying pallets of store-returned tools and hardware and reselling it on eBay. This has shown me that lots of people run a free tool rental scam by buying a tool, using it for one small job, then returning it in nearly new and perfectly functional condition for a refund. I also get a lot of tool battery packs where people buy a fresh replacement, then return their 5-year-old and very used-up looking old battery in the clear package. Lowe's, they in particular need to train and motivate their return desk clerks better if they want to cut their shrinkage numbers way down. Next story. In college, I had a sort of reloadable gift card that could only be used at Publix grocery stores that my parents had to the other card, so they could add money to it. I would have them add money for groceries, and I would go buy a Visa gift card. I'd take that Visa gift card, register it with whatever company was the vendor for it, connect it to my Venmo account, send the balance to a friend who would send it back so I could transfer the money to my bank account so I could buy weed. Sometimes, however, the Publix employee would push back saying I couldn't buy a gift card with a gift card, but Publix is so customer friendly that I would normally say something like, "Oh, this is reloadable, it's basically cash," or one time, a simple, "Oh, I do this all the time, it's fine," and they would just let me do it. Needless to say, I don't think you can do either of those anymore. Next story. About 20 years ago, I had an internship in LA for the summer. My boyfriend, now husband, and I were pretty broke, but had always wanted to go to Universal Studios. The annual pass, it was only a few dollars more, so we figured why not since we could go back for more visits. As we were walking into the park, a couple with VIP passes approached and said they were leaving and didn't want the passes to go to waste. We couldn't believe it. Went on our first ride and they didn't scan the barcode on the pass but let us right on. They went on other rides and the same thing happened. The only thing noting the pass date was a Sharpie written over the lanyard cover. After we got home, we kept the passes and removed the date with rubbing alcohol. For our next visit, we wrote the current date with Sharpie and used the passes. No one ever scanned the barcode on the pass. We did this for an entire summer and never had to wait in line for a single ride. We eventually went to Universal Orlando a couple of years ago and bought VIP passes, which are completely worth it by the way, and they've definitely figured out the loophole by now. It was fun telling our son the shenanigans we got up to before he was born. Next story. Back in college, I realized that there were 2 locks on most coin-operated laundry machines. The actual money was one of those really complicated circular locks, but the access panel for the control panel in machine guts was a bullcrap 3-pin. I could have picked that crap with 2 hairpins and about 20 seconds. So I started by cheating my own laundry. Then I started a mini indoor laundry service. Between the stolen cost and convenience, I paid for my bread and booze for a couple of semesters. Next story. Probably pretty common and maybe still works, but I'm in my 30s now and have no need to go to the mall. The local mall near us was pretty expensive parking, but for the first 15 minutes, it was free. We'd hang out for a couple of hours and then Rochambeau, who would go down to hit the button for the garage entry machine to spit out a ticket for us so we could use that ticket to scan the machine and not pay for parking since we were under the 15-minute limit. We thought we were so slick. Next story. When airlines first started mobile phone tickets, it was just a normal HTML web page. You would leave that up on your phone and not refresh it and go to the airport. Then with TSA and flight boarding, if you were priority, boarding one, status, I forget the thing, you could get through the fast lane and also board first. I would just edit the downloaded HTML in the browser on my phone to change to Group 1. And if I ever got busted, I would just refresh the page and blame the computers. I flew over 100,000 miles yearly, flights every week, and did this for a number of years till they finally changed it. Next story. The local Carl's Jr. manager gave us a small stack of coupons for a free Superstar burger. They were clearly photoshopped and printed on red and blue paper. There was zero fine print on them either, like do not duplicate, etc. So we immediately went to Kinko's and lined them up to fit a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We used some of that white post-it note tape to eliminate dirty edges or shadows and made a clean master sheet. We then matched the paper stock and printed off maybe 40 pages of each color and cut them on those sweet rotary paper cutters that they used to have. And so we had a good 3 to 4 month run using them at several locations before the jig was up. Turns out they were for lucky seat winners at the local college basketball games. They'd handed out maybe 100 during the whole season, but we'd redeemed several hundred of them by that point. Next story. Kava had some glitch with their register where the person working it would just say, "Yours is free." I was baffled the first time it happened, but I would go back the same day and time, Thursdays at around 1 p.m., and I would sometimes be the lucky one who would get a random free meal. Once it happened to the guy in line just ahead of me. However, in total, I got 5 free meals doing this. No idea what the glitch was. Then my schedule changed and I stopped going. I assumed they patched this. Next story. AccuWeather has a paid service that lets you access special high-resolution models, not some dumb in-house model, but higher-resolution versions of some of the most accurate models in weather forecasting, with numerous products that are inaccessible to the general public. Well, one night I was whining about wanting to access the high-res Euro model, and a friend tipped me off that you could log in with username admin, password, and I thought he was joking. He was not, and I used it for years. Well, everyone, I guess you could say that they had a bad password, huh? Because that's me, I'm a bad password. Anyway, we're at the end of the video, guys. I've never been in an instance where I got to manipulate or rip off a multi-billion-dollar company, unfortunately. I had a friend who exploited Uber Eats for a while. I don't know, I guess it was just this particular restaurant or something like that, but he would essentially get $50 worth of food for like $5, $10 just because of the way they set it up. So he just kept doing that until eventually he's like, I kind of feel guilty, and stopped. But he paid pretty good though, or he tipped pretty good though. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Feel free to share your own stories, but thank you all so much for watching, commenting, have a really good day, and bye-bye!